I'm going to take a quick look at the firewall that's available for Linux. This one is the uncomplicated firewall called UFW. It's normally available on Ubuntu and Debian based systems. Just doing a basic install, it will allow all your outbound traffic and block anything coming inbound. So that means if you're running some type of service on that server, like a web server or something like that, you would have to specifically allow the ports to come in for that. I have here a Debian system. This is running Debian version 11, the Bullseye version. This will also work on an Ubuntu based system. The package that you have to install for the firewall is called UFW. So if you search for UFW, you should get the UFW, which is the actual server that will install and allow you to add and remove entries to allow and deny connections. You can see here I already have it installed. There's also GUFW, which is the graphical interface for UFW. I'm not running a graphical interface on my servers, so I'm mostly concerned with this, just this text-based version that installs, and you have to do everything command line. To get that installed, you would do a sudo apt install UFW. Since I already have it installed, there's nothing to do. And if you look at some of the directions here, one of the first things that they tell you to do is to allow SSH. Because as soon as you enable the service, it's going to start blocking everything. So if you're not already connected to the box, you won't be able to connect to it. What it's doing is it's blocking port 22. But if you have an existing connection, it recognizes the existing connection. So it'll leave you connected, but you can't connect again from anywhere else until you allow SSH. It gives some basic examples here, but I found another site that's got some more information on it. And they want you to do a sudo UFW allow port 22, and the protocol is TCP. That is what SSH uses. But what I'm going to do is I'm only going to allow SSH from my desktop machine. So what I would do is paste this in. What I'm going to do is a UFW allow from the IP of my desktop to any, being anything on this machine that I'm putting it on. I'm telling it it's port 22, which is the SSH port. The protocol is TCP. And you have the option to put in a comment. So I'm going to put comment, and I'm going to put SSH inbound from desktop so that I know what this rule is for. And once I do that, it tells me the rule has been updated. So I've allowed port 22, which is SSH, from my desktop to this machine. Now, if I want to actually start the UFW service, I have to sudo UFW enable. And it gives you the warning that it'll disrupt any existing connections. If I didn't have the correct rules there, it might actually drop my connection. So I'll say Y for yes. It tells me the firewall is active and it's enabled on system startup. So what it's done is it's basically done a systemctl UFW enable, so that every time the system starts, it's going to start the firewall. To check on the status of the firewall, the command is UFW status. When I take a look at the status, you see that it's got 2 entries here. It added an IP version 6 entry and the IP version 4 entry. So it's saying allow 22 from this IP, which is my desktop, and from anywhere for IPv6. And I don't want that. So I want to delete that. Now, if you do a status and you add the option numbered to it, it gives you the number of the rules. You can see this is number 1, this is number 2. So I want to delete rule number 2. When we go back and look at the status, you see it's only got that one rule. Now, I'm sure there's ways to disable the version 6 entries being added, but I'm just looking at the simple installation of the firewall. So what I will do is I will go to my local machine, which is here. And when I try to SSH to the Debian box, prompts me for a password, and it logs me in normally. Now, if I go to another box, any other box, and try that same thing, let's do it from here. This is my jump box. If I SSH, it just sits there. Now I have a log running in the background here. And you can see I'm trying from this box, which is my jump box, and I'm trying to go to the Debian box, which is here, and the destination port that I'm going to is port 22. But since I haven't allowed that box to come in, I'm only allowing my desktop, I can't SSH to it. Now, if I wanted to allow this box, this 129, let me just copy that IP. All I have to do is go back to that allow command and place the one with the 129. And remember, it's going to put in the IPv6. Well, it didn't do it this time, so that's good. It didn't put in the IPv6, so I don't have to worry about it. But now it allows the connection to come in. So I'm back on my jump box and I do a SSH again, and it asks me for the password. And that's very basic. That's as basic as you can get with a firewall. You want to allow everything out from your machine. You want to block everything coming in. You only want to permit certain things. Now the question becomes, how do you know what is being blocked, and how do you know what to allow? There's 2 options basically. Either you're going to have a list of what ports to allow. That list is going to come from some type of application that you're running, or you're going to look at the log file and figure out what's being blocked. Now, if you look at the man page for UFW, you have several options here. You have the options to enable, disable, reload, all these things. Go ahead and read through all these things. I'll give you a lot of information. But one of the ones that I want to look at down here at the bottom, I believe it was, they give you examples on allowing ports and protocols. You can allow by name. Normally the name is coming from Etsy services. So 25 is the SMTP port. Let me find what I was looking for. Okay, down at the bottom, there's something called application integration. So if I were to type this command here, UFW app list, it has some predefined applications. So instead of you having to know all the ports and all the protocols, you can just specify this application and it will put all the correct ports and protocols in for you. For example, if we wanted to enable, say, NFS, we want to allow NFS in, but we're not exactly sure what ports or protocols are in NFS. Because UFW has a built-in application for it, you could do sudo. So it's sudo UFW app info NFS. And you can see right here, it tells you what the ports are, 2049 and 111 TCP and 2049 and 111 UDP. It doesn't have every application that's available, but most of them are here. Most of the ones that you would need. And of course, www points to port 80. That's port 80 TCP. And if you see a application and it's got a space, you have to quote that space. You can't just put it, you just can't add it because it doesn't recognize the space. So if you did it that way, you get an error. So you put quotes around it. And that tells you what ports is out. It's port 8081 TCP. So if one of these meets your needs, you could put that in. If you're doing file sharing with Windows, it's CIFS. And here are the ports that you would need right here. It would put them in for you. So let's now the other option is you could look at the actual log. If you go into var log, UFW creates a log file called ufw.log. That log is not readable by normal users, so I'll do a sudo tail-f ufw.log. I'll hit space a few times. And just as an example, I will try to find another box. I don't know if I have another box. I will SSH to my DNS box and then try to SSH to the Debian box that has the firewall on it. Now I see it's failing and I see my log is coming. And this way I can find out the IP of the source, the destination, and the port that it's trying to get to, as well as the protocol. I have an application running on my phone called dvswitch. dvswitch is an application used in ham radio to allow you to connect to digital networks like D-Star, Yaesu reflectors, and also there's one more, I don't remember the name. I believe it's DMR. Basically, I normally just start the application and it comes up and it makes a connection. But now that I have this firewall turned on, it can't connect. And the reason it can't connect is because it's trying from my phone, and this is my phone's static IP. It's trying to go to the Debian server. It's trying to go to this port using UDP, but it's being blocked. So I would have to allow that connection so that this application would continue to work. And I have it over here. Let me do a cut and paste. Blah, 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 blah. I'm going to copy that. Go back over to the dvswitch here. I'm going to clear my screen so you can see, and I'm going to paste it in. I've got to do a shift paste. So I'm going to allow from the IP of my phone to any port 50415, which came from here. And the protocol is UDP. And I put a comment in so that I know what it is. So then I'll hit enter there. And it says the rule is added. So when I go back to my phone, it says unregistered. So I'm going to go back out. And then I'm going to come back in. Now my screen is a little behind. I'm waiting for it to update. Now this time it connected just fine. So if I just go ahead and use the phone.
You there, Adrian?
And you can hear people talking, that means the application is working the way it should.
I'm not here today. VK2G8B, Golf Hotel.
So what I'll do is I'll just keep trying any other applications that I have on that server, and I'll keep an eye on my log file. Now also on this server, I have a web front end for that same dvswitch. Let me see if I can pull that up here. And you look down here, you see I can't pull it up. I'm trying to pull it up from my desktop, but it's being denied. So TCP port 443 from my desktop to the server is being blocked. And you can see that's what all these are. 443 is being blocked. So the same thing, I need to allow the connection. And which one was 443? It's that one at the bottom down there. So I will copy that one. And I will paste it in. Do a shift paste. I'm allowing from my desktop port 443 TCP, and I put a comment in so that I know what it is. It says rule is added. So now when I go back to it, try it again, I get my application to come up. Now I want to restart my login. And you can't just put in the one rule and assume it works. You got to actually use the application to make sure everything works correctly. One thing I found with this application, when I try to turn the audio on, it was having problems. It wants to use my microphone. I say allow. I don't think I have the sound turned on. Let me turn it on here.
There. So there you go, Adrian. All right, we'll let you go. I don't want to tie
So
you up,
there's the DMR
tie
that's
your
working.
afternoon up. Catch you later. Well, if you can come up, if you can't, oh, well, that's the way it goes. What can you do? I'm chasing everyone because Ben told me.
So that lets me know that my applications that I have on this box are working with the very basic firewall. If I go in and I look at the firewall settings, you can see all I've done is I've allowed port 22 from 2 servers. I've allowed the UDP port that my dvswitch software requires for my phone, and I'm only allowing it from my phone. I've got the web interface to that dvswitch that I'm only allowing from my desktop. So anything else on my network can't connect to any of these applications because I'm not allowing it, and that's the way I want it. So that was a very basic introduction to the uncomplicated firewall. It's called UFW. You install it. Before you enable it, you must remember to allow incoming SSH, or you could lock yourself out of the system. It's best to enable it from a console just in case, so that you don't break anything. Any comments or questions, leave them below. Thanks for watching. And I'll cut here.